The sleek glass table in my aunt's architecture firm glistened under the overhead lights, arranged like some corporate inquisition. I stepped into the minimalist conference room and froze. My entire family sat in stiff rows, forming what could only be described as an intervention. Aunt Valerie occupied the seat at the head like a magistrate presiding over a hearing. My parents were on either side of her, wearing identical expressions of concern, and my cousins filled in the rest, eyes watchful, lips pressed tight. I'm Sofia Ramirez, though lately my family preferred introducing me as our niece who's going through a rough patch. At 32, I was apparently the family's biggest letdown because I'd chosen to build a renewable energy tech startup instead of following their well-worn paths into architecture, medicine, or finance. Sophia, we're glad you're here, Aunt Valerie began, gesturing at a single chair placed squarely opposite them. Her office looked out across downtown Chicago, with glass walls framing a view of towering skyscrapers and Lake Michigan glimmering in the distance. I sank into the chair, acutely aware they'd staged this like a defendant's trial. My phone rested on the table, screen facing up, sound at full volume for the calls I couldn't afford to miss. In 4 hours, I had a video conference with my engineering team. In 8 hours, the biggest press release of my career was scheduled to go out. But to them, my hoodie and jeans screamed disaster. We're worried about you, my mother Rosa said softly, folding her hands as if bracing to deliver a verdict. About your business, your future, these high-risk choices, my father Miguel added, his voice heavy. We've given you space to figure things out. We hoped this green tech thing was just a phase, said my cousin Alex, flicking his Rolex as he spoke. But the numbers don't lie. Startups like yours fail 90% of the time. It's just how the market works, added my cousin Bianca, fresh off her MBA. Energy tech startups are flooding the space. They had no idea that Aurora Innovations had quietly secured contracts to transform grid storage for 3 global energy giants. But to them, green tech meant solar panels in my garage. And Valerie rose, adopting her courtroom posture. We've called this meeting because sometimes tough love is necessary. Your company is obviously failing. It's time to cut your losses. The irony would have been hilarious if it didn't hurt so much. The same family who bragged about facts and evidence had never once tried to understand what I actually did. To them, me rejecting their job offers meant I must be failing. I spoke with Judge Whitaker about a clerkship, Aunt Valerie said firmly. It's entry-level, but it's real legal work, a path with prospects. My Aunt Lucia chimed in, and my hospital is always hiring administrators. Healthcare is solid, Sophia, not like these risky startups. My phone lay silent on the glass table, but I knew that in exactly 19 minutes my life would change. The Forbes piece was scheduled for 4:07 p.m. Central, and advance copies were already in journalists' inboxes around the world. We're here because your company is obviously failing, Aunt Valerie continued, delivering it like a judge handing down a sentence. It's time for tough love. Not everyone's meant to run a business. My parents exchanged a knowing look. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd clearly brought on purpose. We've talked about this as a family, my father Miguel said softly. We want to help you get back on your feet. We're ready to cover your rent while you transition into something more stable. Back on my feet. I nearly laughed. They had no clue about the $847 million, 0 cents, in venture funding sitting in Aurora Innovations accounts, or the acquisition offers I'd rejected over the past 6 months. The green tech bubble is bursting, Alex said with a grave shake of his head. Smart people are getting out before it collapses. Bianca flipped her tablet around, displaying charts and graphs. I researched the market. Renewable startups are dropping fast. Investors are moving back to safer industries. They'd researched an industry they didn't understand, drawing conclusions that were almost funny if they weren't so wrong. Sophia, Aunt Valerie said, leaning forward, voice softening, we love you. That's why we're doing this. Sometimes family has to intervene when someone can't see reality. My phone rang. The clear ringtone sliced through the silence. Everyone turned as it buzzed against the glass. I checked the caller ID and smiled faintly, perfect timing. Excuse me, I said gently. I should take this. Sophia, Aunt Valerie snapped. "We're having a serious conversation." "So am I," I replied smoothly, answering the call and pressing the speaker button. "This is Sophia Ramirez." "Miss Ramirez, this is Jennifer Walsh from Forbes magazine." The voice rang through the conference room, clear as a bell. "I'm calling with some very exciting news. Congratulations, you've officially made the Forbes billionaire list for 2025. The entire room fell utterly silent. Every face around the table froze in shock. Aunt Valerie's jaw dropped. My mother's tissue slipped from her fingers and floated to the floor. Alex's Rolex clinked against his coffee cup as his hand trembled. "Based on our independent valuation of Aurora Innovations and your personal equity," Jennifer continued, blissfully unaware of the stunned audience, "we've estimated your net worth at $3,200,000,000, making you the youngest Latina billionaire in American history." I watched my family's faces morph from confusion to disbelief to the dawning realization that nothing they'd assumed was true. "The article goes live in 15 minutes, Jennifer added. "We've already been contacted by 3 major networks hoping for interviews. Your assistant said we should coordinate directly through you." "Thank you, Jennifer," I said calmly. "I'll have my PR team send over the official photos and background information within the hour." "And Miss Ramirez, our readers are particularly fascinated by the exclusive on your energy storage breakthrough. The implications for global energy grids alone could transform entire industries." "The technology speaks for itself," I replied, glancing at Aunt Valerie gripping the edge of the glass table like the world was tilting beneath her. "I appreciate Forbes recognizing its potential. Of course, we'll talk soon about the feature for our cover story. Congratulations again, Miss Ramirez. This is extraordinary." I ended the call and looked around the conference room at my family's stunned faces. "Sorry about that," I said lightly. "You were saying something about my failing company?" Aunt Valerie opened and closed her mouth several times before finally croaking, "Billionaire list? $3,200,000,000, 0 cents, I confirmed. "Although that's as of Friday's valuation, the acquisition offers I've been getting could push it even higher." My mother clutched her throat. "Acquisition offers?" I scrolled through emails on my phone. Microsoft, Google, Apple, and Tesla have all submitted formal proposals in the past month. Tesla alone offered $4,700,000,000, 0 cents for a 60% stake. Alex's confidence crumbled. But you work from coffee shops. Stick around and hit that subscribe button, because in the next part, you'll see exactly how I handle billion-dollar offers, family pride, and the biggest decision of my life. "You drive that old Prius." "I work from coffee shops because I prefer the energy over corporate offices," I said, lifting my chin. "And I drive a Prius because it's environmentally responsible and gets incredible gas mileage." I stood up, smoothing my jeans and hoodie. "I also happen to own the building that houses 3 of those coffee shops," I added coolly. "And I've built a portfolio of renewable energy investments worth roughly $400 million. Silence filled the room, thick as concrete, until Bianca found her voice. "But the market analysis?" "Yes, some green tech startups are failing," I said, "the ones built on hype instead of substance." I rested my hands on the back of my chair. "But Aurora Innovations holds 47 patents on energy storage and smart grid technologies. Our systems don't just predict market trends, they shape them." Aunt Valerie slumped back into her chair, her authority crumbling like a tower of glass. "Sophia, we had no idea." "No, you didn't." I crossed the room to the towering windows, gazing out at the Chicago skyline that would soon feature buildings powered by my company's tech. "You saw a young woman working in unconventional ways and assumed I was failing. You heard startup and thought risky hobby, not revolutionary innovation." My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. I glanced down, 3 more interview requests, including 60 Minutes. And a message from the mayor's office. "The mayor wants me to head the city's new technology initiative," I said, turning my phone so they could see the message. "Something about attracting more clean energy innovation to the region." My father finally found his voice. "Mia, We were only trying to help. Help? I echoed. You staged an intervention without ever researching what I do. You offered me entry-level jobs while I was building billion-dollar technology. You judged me by appearances, not facts. Aunt Lucia spoke softly. But you never told us how successful you were. Would you have believed me? I asked, or assumed I was delusional. I sank back into my chair. I thought actions spoke louder than words. Apparently, I was wrong. My phone rang again. I glanced at the screen. Goldman Sachs. Excuse me, I said, answering and pressing speaker. This is Sofia Ramirez. Ms. Ramirez, this is Patrick Chin from Goldman Sachs Private Wealth Management. We've been following the Forbes announcement, Patrick said, voice crisp and professional. We'd like to discuss transitioning your portfolio. With holdings of this scale, you'll need specialized strategies for tax optimization and diversification. Thanks, Patrick, I said. Have my assistant schedule something next week. We'll also need to discuss philanthropy planning. Absolutely. Congratulations again on this extraordinary milestone, Miss Ramirez. We look forward to working with you. I ended the call and looked at my family, still staring like I'd sprouted wings. Philanthropy planning, I said, sliding my phone away. I'm establishing the Ramirez Innovation Foundation to fund STEM education for underrepresented students. The initial endowment will be $200 million. The numbers seemed to hit them like an electric shock. Bianca wavered in her seat. 200 million? She whispered. Education has always mattered to this family, I said softly. Now I can actually do something meaningful. Aunt Valerie leaned forward, a glint in her eyes I recognized from watching her negotiate deals. Sophia, we clearly misunderstood your situation, but now that we know what you've accomplished, we should discuss how the family can support you. I lifted an eyebrow. Like offering me entry-level clerkships and hospital admin jobs? She flushed. We could help in other ways. Legal advice, financial guidance, family connections. I have excellent legal counsel, thanks, I replied. Kirkland & Ellis handles my corporate work, and I have a great IP team for my patents. I picked up my bag. As for family connections, I'm building my own network. One driven by innovation, not tradition. My phone buzzed with another call. I glanced at it, then declined. Sorry, that was 60 minutes. I'll call them back later. The casual way I dismissed a call from one of the country's top news shows finally seemed to register. Sophia? My mother said quietly. What happens now? With us? I looked around at the people who'd raised me and underestimated me. Now, I said gently. We learn what family really means, not judging or assuming the worst, not offering help without understanding, but supporting each other out of love. Alex cleared his throat. So, how do we start? I smiled for the first time all day. You could start by asking what Aurora Innovations actually does. What problems we're solving, what impact we're making in the world, and maybe you could stop assuming I need your guidance. Aunt Valerie added softly, her voice carrying a hint of humility. That would be refreshing. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and about that clerkship and hospital admin job? I appreciate the thought, but I'm a little busy reshaping the global clean energy landscape. Just as I reached for the handle, my phone rang again. The caller ID made me smile. This should be interesting, I said, hitting speaker. Sophia, this is Dr. Lena Chen, the President's Science Advisor. We've been following your work in energy storage and grid technology. The President would like to discuss appointing you to the National Science Foundation Board. Are you available for a call with the White House tomorrow? I looked back at my family's stunned faces. Let me check my calendar and get back to you, I said lightly. I might have a window between the Forbes photo shoot and the Senate subcommittee hearing on clean tech regulation. Perfect. We'll coordinate with your staff. Congratulations, Miss Ramirez. The country needs innovators like you. I ended the call and silence hung in the room like a weight. Finally, Aunt Valerie spoke. Senate subcommittee? They want my input on regulating emerging energy tech, I said. Turns out, when you hold patents that can transform infrastructure, lawmakers want to understand the stakes. I opened the door, then turned back one last time. Sunday dinner at Mom and Dad's this week? My mother nodded quickly, eyes shimmering. Of course, mija. This time alone. I sat crying at my... Good. But no more interventions. No more assumptions. Just dinner, where we talk about what we're actually building. Sophia, my father called softly. We're proud of you. He paused, voice thick. We should have said that first. I smiled genuinely. Thank you, Dad. That means more than you know. 6 months later, I sat in Aurora Innovation's executive conference room, high in a new glass tower overlooking Chicago. Beyond the windows, I could see crews breaking ground for the Ramirez Innovation Center, a joint project with the local university. My assistant poked her head in. Your family is here for the board meeting. I glanced up from the acquisition proposal I'd been reviewing. Tesla had raised their offer to $6,200,000,000, 0 cents. But I was leaning toward partnership instead. More impact, more control, more fun. Send them in. Aunt Valerie entered first, carrying a slim leather folder but looking far less imposing than she had 6 months ago. She was followed by Alex and Bianca, who had both joined my legal and strategy teams. Mom and Dad brought up the rear, beaming like proud parents at a graduation. How are the preparations going? Mom asked, settling into the chair beside me. The Senate hearing went well, I said. 3 committees want to adopt our regulatory proposals. I tapped my tablet and brought up a newsfeed on the conference room screen. And the foundation awarded its first round of scholarships yesterday, 200 students starting STEM programs this fall. Alex leaned forward, genuinely curious. And the autonomous vehicle deal? Signed this morning, I said. Tesla, Ford, and Toyota are licensing our core algorithms. The first fully autonomous cars should hit the roads in 18 months. Bianca grinned. Guess my market analysis from 6 months ago held up? Like milk? I teased, laughing. But at least you've learned to research an industry before analyzing it. Aunt Valerie opened her folder and slid a thick contract across the table. The foundation bylaws are ready for your review. Structuring $500 million in annual giving is complex, but worth it, Dad said. When I see those scholarship students, I finally get why you built all this. My phone buzzed with another alert, a new Forbes notification about the 40 under 40 list. I held up my phone for them to see. Number 1, Mom read aloud, pride shining in her eyes. Our daughter, number 1 on Forbes 40 under 40. Plus, added Angie, could you avoid our niece, Aunt Valerie added with a small smile. The same one who was supposedly failing 6 months ago. I stood and walked to the windows, gazing at the skyline of the city I was helping to transform. Do you know what I learned from that intervention? I asked. What? Bianca asked. Then sometimes the best business strategy is letting people underestimate you. It gives you freedom to work without interference. I turned back to them. But family should see your potential, even when you can't. And sometimes, Aunt Valerie said softly, family needs to learn that success comes in forms they never imagined. My phone rang again. The caller ID read, Nobel Committee. I glanced at my family's eager faces and smiled. Should I put this one on speaker too? Their enthusiastic yes told me everything I needed to know. Some lessons are best taught with headlines and perfectly timed phone calls. But the most important lesson was that true family doesn't just celebrate your success, they learn to recognize it. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't proving people wrong. It's helping them finally see who you've been all along. If my story inspired you, subscribe and share your thoughts below. Tell me what risks you've taken and how you stayed true to your vision. Remember, sometimes being underestimated is your biggest advantage. Believe in your path, even if others can't see it yet. Let's keep building futures together.